Jones Zijo said coldly, "I came to kill him today, not to ask you to engrave him. If you want to engrave, you can wait until I kill him." Lu Guang hurriedly said, "Mr. Zijo, in that case, he won't be able to feel the pain of humiliation and death." Jones Zijo glanced at him and said, "The surname over there is Wilson. You can engrave it whatever you want. I will kill him first." After all, Jones Zijo pinched Orville's neck with one hand, and lifted the volley with his feet hanging in the air. Jones Zijo only used a little force on his hand, and Mr. Orville suddenly felt a sharp pain in his neck, completely out of breath, and it felt more painful than hanging himself. It seemed that his Adam's apple would be crushed vigorously. At this moment, Mr. Orville's face was full of black and purple. His heart had already realized that he would die today. As early as when Lu Guang rushed into the diamond box, Charlie left home and drove the old master's BMW car to Classic Mansion. Originally, he was not prepared to go out so early. But his mother-in-law Elaine kept talking to him at home. For a while, she disliked Jacob as he went to a restaurant to be extravagant. She felt that 20,000 would be better for her to buy cosmetics, and by the way, she could go to the mahjong hall to rub a few circles with friends. After a while, she disliked Charlie for not going out to work and eat plain rice when he was idle at home. Later, she said more and more vigorously. She insisted on introducing Charlie to a job as a security guard in the parking lot. She also said that the salary of 3,000 a month would be paid to him. Charlie knew that Elaine had run out of money recently, and her pocket was cleaner than her face, and she couldn't play outside, so she could only stay at home most of the time. And as long as she is at home, she will be sulking and complaining constantly. She was in a bad mood, and Charlie was even more unpleasant. It just so happened that tonight Jacob and his wife Claire hadn't come home yet, so Elaine kept chirping at him, really annoying Charlie, so he went out early, even in the car. Sitting is much better than listening to her complaining at home. Charlie drove to Classic Mansion and stopped at the door of Classic Mansion. He didn't get up in a hurry. He checked that the time was still early, and it was estimated that the old master would have to sit on it for a while, so he turned off the fire and sat in the car to listen to songs and pass the time. According to the original plan, the plan was to wait for the old master to call himself after he had finished drinking and had enough food and drink and then went up to pick him up. However, after waiting at the gate of Classic Mansion for a while, Charlie realized that something was wrong. At the gate of Classic Mansion, there have always been 2 security guards and 2 waitresses. The security guards are responsible for guarding and the waiter is responsible for welcoming guests. But today, there is no one at the gate of Classic Mansion. Moreover, there was a sign at the door stating that the business was closed. What's the situation? Charlie thought to himself, did Mr. Orville know that the old master is coming today, so he directly booked the venue for him? Mr. Orville is very insightful in handling things. Thinking like this, he saw a lot of panicked old men at the gate of Classic Mansion. Charlie was even more puzzled. These old men all looked the same age as Jacob, and each of them looked scared as if something had happened inside. So Charlie hurriedly got out of the car and stopped an old master to ask, "Uncle, what happened upstairs?" It was Chairman Pei who was stopped. He was still in shock, and he kept shaking and said, "They are killing upstairs." When Charlie heard this, he snorted in his heart. Murdered? What's the situation? Could it be that something happened to Classic Mansion? Thinking of this, he immediately rushed into Classic Mansion. When he entered Classic Mansion, he discovered that the waiter and security had fallen to the ground. Charlie stepped forward to investigate and found that all the waiters and security guards had passed out, and everyone had bruises on their necks, and it seemed that they had passed out with their hands. This is a master. Charlie couldn't help but pay attention, and immediately stepped upstairs. At this time, Orville was dying, his eyes turned white. On the other side, Lu Guang and Lu Ming winked at each other seeing this. Lu Ming took a dagger from his waist and looked at Jacob who was trembling in the corner, and said coldly, "Since Mr. Orville was dealt with by Jones, then they will let this Jacob suffer double crime." After that, he said to his father Lu Guang, "Dad, You grab this old thing, and I will engrave the 4 characters, "Poor hang father-in-law," on his forehead. Lu Guang nodded, and said coldly, "Engrave. Must engrave. Be harder and engrave it on his skull." Jacob's scared soul was not possessed, and he blurted out, "I have no grievances with you. Why do you treat me like this?" "No grievances and no enmity?" Lu Ming rushed to Jacob with a vigorous step, slapped him directly and severely. "You're not dead. Your son-in-law has humiliated me. Dare you say that you have no grievances with me? I tell you, today I will not only engrave the 4 characters of hanging father-in-law on your forehead. IFC King want to kill you. Let your damn poor son-in-law comes and collects your body." Lu Ming's blade was extremely sharp, and Jacob cried in fright as he watched the cold light refracted by the blade. However, he had no other way. He could only blurt out to shout to Orville, "Great Mr. Orville, Orville help." Orville was on the verge of death at this time. His brain was about to lose consciousness due to a lack of oxygen. Suddenly he heard Jacob's call for help. With the last bit of effort, he said, "Mr. Wilson, I'm sorry, it was Orville who made you tired.